Hey everybody and welcome back. Well, as you see from the title, we're going to do the last little bit of the engine, which is a small bit, so there are some bits of stuff to sort of fill up the video. Here's the crank pressed out. There's a short piece of video from Steam Shop Dave's workshop is quite dim and it didn't film all that well, so there's a little bit of video, but it definitely showed that the jack on my press has had it completely, because I think we put 4 ton on this and it just popped out. So it wasn't that this was particularly in tight, but you will just hear the pop, the crack as it starts out. So nothing else to say, I don't think. If anything comes up to mind, I'll mention it in the video, but I'll give you a closer look at this and then we'll go from there. Alright, here's our setup at Steam Shop Dave's. Straight away.
It wasn't hard at all.
Must be, I think it's just that jack in mine is now hang on, let me put this down and then I'll catch that. Right, so basically everything is now stripped. It's all been degreased and I was fiddling around with that, trying to do something else. And bead blasted. So we're going to start working with the crank, because you just saw that being split. But just a quick word, if you're wondering why the last video was slightly different, it's because my main computer finally really just gave up the ghost. Well, it didn't exactly give up the ghost, and I found out it's something to do with the hard drive. I ran diagnostic and it said there was a fault in the hard drive. It virtually wouldn't save things from one place to another. So I actually got all of last week's video done and then I couldn't do anything with it. So I tried using my old computer, that wouldn't work. So eventually I did it using Microsoft Video Editor on my little laptop. So that's why it's different. Might be like that for a couple of weeks till I get the big computer sorted and get some new video software, because the one I was using they don't make anymore. Alright, so let's have a look at the engine. So as we just press this apart, we'll start with this because there's a couple of things to note here. Right, I had a comment which I answered asking me if there was any play in the little end eye. Well, there isn't actually, I knew that, but it's absolutely spot on. There's nothing there, so that's fine. So the other thing is I've ordered, there's the number 4048, so it's the thin. The next one apparently was a bigger bushing and then they went to having various bearings, so the big end eye got bigger and I presume this part got bigger as well. So that's got the bronze bush in it, at least it looks to be bronze. So what we're going to do with this now is we are going to take this plug out, which is the sludge trap plug, and actually you can see now better than when they're together exactly how a sludge trap works. You see how it's there with this channel, so the oil goes in through that hole there, doesn't go in through the end, goes through there, then goes in and it goes into the crankshaft, and I don't know if you can see it, there's a hole there which lines up with that hole there. So it goes, it's a bit difficult to show, it goes in through the crankshaft up to there, through that hole, and then out this one to lubricate the big end. But there's also a drill way here, and as this is spinning like mad you get centrifugal force and any solids in the oil get thrown out this way. So the oil goes in close to when the sludge gets thrown out. So you take that plug out, clean all this out to get the sludge, because eventually, of course, it will fill up with sludge and block off the hole going to the big end. One other thing I'll mention is I measured this and I measured the bush it runs in, and they're fine. According to Rupert ratio, it's, I don't know, 2 to 6 thou clearance, and it's 4. So it's just, wasn't even 4, I think 3.5. So that's nice. I don't have to worry about putting a new bush in and line reaming it and all that sort of thing. So let's get this sludge trap out. Now obviously, with these things whirling round, the last thing you want is for this to unscrew and come out. So the way they always lock them in is they punch them. Generally only one punch, and to be honest, looking at those punch marks, they're a bit far in. What they do is punch it right on the edge of where the inner and the outer thread is, and they sort of distort a little bit of the thread to lock it in. And as I say, they seem to be a little far out. I don't know how much they've done. So what you normally do is just drill that where those punch marks are. You don't sort of drill a hole, you just drill in far enough to take out those couple of swaged out pieces of thread. Then once that's done, we'll use an impact with big screwdriver head and get that out, hopefully. Sometimes they come out easily, sometimes they don't. As those of you who've been watching for a while may remember, I had to take one to Dave's and it took us a while to get it out. So let me drill these two and then we'll get the impact wrench on it. Right, let's see if I can show you this without getting in the way. You can see where I've drilled the two. Partly really what you're doing is you're drilling away metal so that when this starts to move, the little damaged part will be able to crumple inwards. The outer thread will just force it in to where you've drilled away. Well, that's the plan anyway. Are we going the right way? Yes. Oh! Oh, I've never had one come out that easily. So, I'm going to try and show you this. Now, I've got a bit of extra light on the situation. Before we do this, one word of warning. Do not clean out your sludge traps with the big end on. Because if you're going to be digging stuff out of here, as you'll see in a minute, you could push some of it down into the oilway, and if you have the big end on, you can't blow it all out because it'll just go into where the big end bearing is. So you've got to be able to get to both ends of this, right? Okay, look at this. See that? I mean, you can't see right down at the hole, but it is absolutely solid in there. Look. Sorry, I keep bumping the camera. So if any of you have ever wondered why it's such a big deal on these and the Triumph Twins and what have you to clean out the sludge trap, that is why. Okay, so let me dig all this out and then I'll show you what I mean about blowing it through. Right, got a couple of things to show you. First of all, the actual stuff that came out the sludge trap. There's where I pulled out the sludge trap. Here's the plug. Now this plug is hollow. I don't think the later ones were, and the later ones are bigger actually. But look at that. Even more. And obviously the last thing you want is to go through in the bearing, particularly this type of bearing, which is a bush, or say with the later ones or with the Triumph Twins and stuff, which are shell bearings. Alright, so there's the sludge that we've got out. Now I'm going to show you something else. Now you should just about be able to see the hole there and this. I've blocked off the 3 other holes and we're going to blow some air into the crankshaft. Now this is into the oilway, so this is the way oil would be going. So you're going to see, wait for the lorry, there we go. you're going to see what would happen to oil if it went through and we hadn't cleaned well. You're going to see how much stuff has got pushed in. This is why I say you've got to be able to get to that hole in there to clean through from this side to the outside. The reason we're getting more lorries is because we're on the route that the lorries take to go from a road salt mine out to deliver it to the various townships. So let's see if this will work. So this might come out quickly, so be ready. Watch there and there at the same time. Ha! This is so blocked up it hasn't blown anything out. Let me put my hand over that. This isn't much of a demonstration, is it? Okay, there was a chunk in there, so wasn't as graphic as I was hoping it was going to be. But anyway, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce cleaner here, and I'm going to introduce cleaner there, turn it round so that's pointing downwards, and we'll get it all cleaned out. I thought that was going to be so spectacular, but I guess I cleaned it out too well. Now you keep flushing and flushing and flushing with a solvent like a brake cleaner, something like that, that will dissolve the sludge, until, I like to do it on an old towel and you can just come out and go anywhere. And you do that until, there's the holes for the crank. Yeah, we're still in. Until when you put it in, it comes out clean. Alright, you put it in all the holes. Make sure everything that comes out is nice and clean, and you can also shine a light down in there. I haven't got the right lens on, I can't show you right inside, but you'll be able to see that it's nice and clean. So let me put that to one side and add sludge trap plug to the parts list, which has now gone onto a second page in my book, and I'll show you something else. Now I slipped up here a little bit because I got carried away the other day and did this job and forgot to film it. But you remember it was really difficult to get this nut off the end of the clutch shaft. And when I got the nut off, it was hot. Actually, for both these nuts, a couple of people asked were they left-hand threads. No, they're not. They're all right-hand threads. So I noticed when I was looking at them that somebody had been thumping the end of this with a hammer, and the end was mushroomed. And I was going to show you, you could really see the mushroom in the last couple of threads, but I started dressing them up before I realised I wasn't filming it. But even trying to dress them up with a file, which isn't easy because don't forget this is a 1/2 inch BSC thread. Now I've mentioned BSC threads before, and most BSC threads, BSC, which stands for British Standard Cycle, are 26 threads per inch. But as you get to the bigger ones, there are some slightly odder ones, and this one is a 20. Well, if you try and dress them up with a triangular file, of course that's at 60 degrees, and these threads are 55 degrees, the angle down there in the thread. So you've got to be careful, but you can touch the edges up. But anyway, I still can't. I had another nut because it had damaged the thread in that, of course, as I forced it off, but it still won't screw on properly. And when I looked, I have 5/8, I have 7/16 BSC, I even have left-hand thread BSC ones, but I don't have a 1/2 inch BSC die. So there's another $50 odd. So I'll order one of them today and I'll recut that, because the C15 gearbox shafts are not the same as the B25s and later ones, they're smaller. So I'd have to chase around trying to get one of these. So as I say, it's only the last couple of threads. Get them cleaned up, and as you can see from this, let me put it in there, there's a lot of thread goes on, so having these couple here cut back a little bit won't be too bad. So there's that. What else? Now as we're waiting for engine parts to come, we get to the stuff. So the first thing I thought I would do, well, what we're going to do is the forks, and part of that are getting these ears right. because you may remember they were a bit bent. Interesting to note that they're actually, you see the piece goes right on there, they're welded there, and there they bronzed it so that they could smooth it out and make a nice little curve. So I beat them flat, just the ordinary, I laid them there, nice surface, hammered them out. But of course they're not completely flat. They've got a little bend in them because the forks where they fit are wider than the headlamp. So they've got to come in a little bit, but they can't just come in at an angle. They've got to come in and then be straight again so that they're parallel to fix the headlamp. So what I've done is I've marked out the bench here. That's the distance between the two mounting holes on the bottom yoke, 5 inches. And the headlamp with a sort of 1/8 inch spacer is 6.5 inches. So what I've done then is I put these on so that that line goes through the centre of the holes there, and just use the edge of the bench to make sure they're set back the same distance. This of course doesn't have to be absolutely exact. Then I'm using a square onto the line where the headlamp is going to be. Hang on, not showing you that very well. See there. Then I'll put a square onto that line, and as you can see it's moved it round a little bit. So this one wants to come back. So just slowly put it in the vise, bend it a little bit. I think this one actually is about right. Yep, that's just touching the chalk line and just touching the ear. So we're fine. So I'll keep working on this one a little bit, get them right, and then we'll get the old paint off ready for painting. Now the next thing we're going to do is take the forks apart and do our couple of bits of welding. So where's the thing? There it is. Okay, so before I wanted to take it all apart, you'll notice here, because we've shimmed the wheel a little bit, the boss on the forks doesn't exactly fit into the slot here. I mean, it's in the right place, but it's slightly high, and there's just a little gap in the back. So I don't think it would be a big deal, but just to be on the safe side, I've just made a little L-shaped piece, which is going to go in there. It's going to fill up that gap, and it's going to extend the boss down so we have a much better brake torque. So when we take the forks apart, that fits in there nicely. We'll weld that in and shape it with a file a little bit, and then that will be perfect. The other thing you remember we've got to do is make the little piece for the brake cable to go onto. So let me take the wheel out and take the forks out. Right, well, forks. Now over the past years I've had several people mention how much patience I've got. Well, if you'd been here a few minutes ago you'd have seen it run out completely. These forks come apart differently to all the ones you've seen before. Instead of taking out an Allen bolt at the bottom which bolts everything in, these are held in on a couple of bushes by this seal holder. Now the Triumph seal holders have holes on the outside, and you get a C-spanner that goes in, turns them. These have 2 slots inside, and you can get a special tool that slides down. It's like a tube with a couple of dogs on. So years ago I made one. There it is. So I thought, I'd used it a couple of times. I thought I'll redo the end, and this time I'll harden the dogs. And I did it on the mill, and I measured it all very carefully, and I am damned, this is the 3rd time I've remade this end. I'll show you something about the stanchions which is really strange later on, but I cannot get it to locate in the holes. See? Even if I put it so the dogs are not in the holes and turn it where you'd expect it to drop down, basically nothing happens. I've been working on this since yesterday. It's driven me absolutely mad. So much so that the chrome on these isn't brilliant. One of them's dented. I'm going to take the damn things off with a pair of Stilsons. Horror, horror. Yes, it's going to wreck them, but that's all I can think to do. And then when I see the thing at the bottom, I can make my tool exactly to match. Because one of these tools is $60 or $70, so, and the fork shrouds are barely going to be that. So for this time, let me pull you back. Oh, actually, you're all right. We're going to see if we can't get them off with a pair of Stilsons. The other couple of times, I mean, I've had them stiff, but let me put that further into the face there. In fact, we'll put that in fully on and I'll move you a little bit. Alright. I've been cursing and swearing with this, I'll tell you. There they go. So, as I said, these screw off. Now the actual damping part on this, the damper rod, I'll show you in a second, actually is upside down if you like, because it screws into the top nut. Let me get this off and then I can probably show you it a little bit better. So now I'll have to phone my supplier and add these to the list. And I'll tell you something, the last Triumph pair of these I did, the threads on the new ones were so poor. Again, I spent hours literally working with a file and a scribe, picking at the threads to get the damn thing to go together. Alright, so there's that. And now you can see it all comes out. Let me move you round. Now I think all the forks you've seen in the various projects have had alloy fork legs, and in those instances the stanchions just run in there, but these, the steel on steel, they put a bush in. There's a bush here in the top, and when we pull the stanchion out you'll see that there is a bush on the end of that as well. Let me just walk round. Don't worry about the oil, I've got a cloth on the floor. And there's the other bush. Right, now this one's a sliding bush, that one's fixed, so that one runs on the inside of the leg, and this one, if you like, the fork stanchion runs in the bush, and that bush runs in the fork leg. And it all comes out like that. My cloth here to make sure I'm catching all this oil. I did drain them, but this, you know, sort of sticks in the inside. There. Now there's the damper rod. Oh God, there's oil still gone everywhere. And you'll see on the end this nut. You can only just see it on that the end is threaded. So hold on a second. So this damper rod actually screws into, here's the top nut, it screws into the top nut. So instead of the damper being held at the bottom, the damper's held at the top as the fork goes up and down. So there's this rubber thing on, there's a strange little clip on it. So let me clean up a little bit and then we'll show you what's inside the actual fork leg. Now then, there's the fork stanchion. Did you notice anything interesting? It gets narrower. This is the top part. That and that are where the yolks go. You can see there's actually a little lip there. And then it comes down and there's even a little lip here. Of course, what it means is, because this bit here is the sliding part, it means nothing will come off the top. So everything's got to come off the bottom. So let's take the bottom end apart and then we'll get the bushes off. Let me show you the bushes a bit better. See, there's the two bushes. And actually, there's no play in them. They're really nice. So we've got to take the end off. Getting this bush is sort of pressed on, so we've got to get that bush off. Then this one will slide off. This little collar will slide off. Then the oil seal will slide off. Now the nut on the end of here, as you'll see when I get it off, is a slightly strange shape. And a 30mm socket is a nice tight fit on it. So let's see if it'll come out. There we go. And then there's a washer. And then that bush will come off. Then everything else will slide off. So let me move you around again. Well, I suppose it's not so much that this is a strange shape as what they've done is they've taken the corners off from the flats. I think it's 1.3/16. Let's measure it. Which of course I don't have. I have everything but. What's 3/16? 180. So it is, find a couple of flats. One inch, one. That's 203. There's a weird size. Anyway, 30mm will just nicely tap onto it and be a nice tight fit. Hold on. Bloody sales call. Alright, so now we've got that off there. There's the holes for the damping, and what you'll see when we get in the bottom is there's a cone that goes in here. Alright, so now we can take that off. I'm just laying these out in order that they come off so I don't forget. Then that will come off, which goes that way around. And that will come off, and inside there is the oil seal. And hang on, let me get a light. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this at all, but inside there, let me move you. Right, and there you can see the little cutout. There's one there and there's one on the other side. So I've got to try and find out why my tool doesn't, well, let me rephrase that. I have got to find out why the dogs don't fit into those slots. Now then, I found out what it was by being able to look right inside. I could see it going into the little slots. And the OD was just big enough so they didn't quite, it was catching, it wasn't going in. So I've taken a little bit off there. It's still a bit of a chew to, see, I shouldn't have taken it out the holes, should I? You'd expect it, I'm sure the proper tool with all the right diameters just drops in there. There it goes. Alright, I've also heated this up a bit, plus it's been standing since yesterday with croil in it. Oh, I guess the heat did it. So that's how they're supposed to come off. Alright, so I won't make you watch screwing that off. We'll go to the other part of the fork. Now then, I'm gripping the damping part, which is fastened into the bottom in these soft jaws here. It's got a 7/32 Allen bolt in there, which of course I don't have. So if any of you are stuck like that, but you do have an Allen key, you cut a chunk off and you get yourself the appropriate socket. So of course it's a 1/4 inch socket, so it's got to be 1/4 to 3/8, 3/8 to half. So let's see if we can get this off. Oh God, I guess these things haven't come apart for 40 years. Actually longer for this. 30, 50 years probably since they were put together. Alright, let me work on them. Well, I'm waiting now for the impact wrench battery to charge, so I thought I'd get on with a couple of other little things. So I've welded that onto there. I welded it proud so I can shape it back with a file and get that exactly right. And then I thought I'd show you another couple of little things. Let's have a look here. The bottom bush actually has a lip on it. See, this diameter here is smaller than that diameter there, so when that goes on the tube it comes up against the stop. And last but not least, the oil seal. You actually use those two little cutouts to get the oil seal out. You just get on the edge of it and tap it out. Come out? No, not yet. There is another little metal lip there, so you've got to be sure you don't just put your drift on that and then you'll be banging away. There it goes. And finally, you'll just pull out. So there's the oil seal, and it just goes in there. Right, lunch. Right, I managed to get one out. I was wondering whether it's the actual head of the Allen bolt that's stuck, so I heated it up and bang, it just came straight out. So let's try this one. Thought I was going to have to drill the head off and then try and extract it from the bottom of the damper tube. The oil inside starting to bubble. And the heat's getting right through. Let's give this one a try. Hang on, where's my little Allen gone out the end? Oh, there it is. Ow! Stuck in the other one, so of course it got hot. Alright. Hey! So there we are. Now then, this damper rod has got a nut on the end of it. So it has to come out this way, but that seems to be how are you supposed to get that out of there? Slot. The reason I can't get any information about this mostly is because my BSA manuals, which are on a DVD, are at the repair place. Because I left them, one disc would read, one wouldn't, so they kept them to do the fault finding. Alright, let's see what else we can do. Well, let me check, see how much time I've got left. Well, I think I've spotted what might have been part of the problem of getting this out, and that is the sealing washers that had been used. I don't know if you can see the sealing washer there, but it's actually, see the lip? That has been crushed right into the hole, I think. Crushed into the threads. So probably a little bit of heat just expanded things enough. Anyway, we got it out. Right, this rod does come out the top. I thought it must. I kept looking at the bottom and thinking that's been pressed in there. So there's a circlip in. See the little circlip? And then with that circlip out, there's our damping mechanism. Well, basically, yeah. That's what it amounts to. Not a lot to it. Now that goes to there, and there is one, but I don't know where the other one is, and then this clip should go in there and through that to hold that there. So I'm going to need another one of these, unless it's fallen on the floor. I'll have a look around. So seeing as there are no O-rings or anything in there, I don't really see much point in me taking the other one apart. So I'll just put this back together and find the other one of these clips, and we won't do any more with that. But I thought you'd at least like to know how it does come apart. Well, that's as much as I can get done for this week. Got all the forks apart. I'm doing some little bits of bead blasting of small things like the fork legs and what have you, because I'm going to start painting probably next week. So next week we're going to carry on with the little bits, because I've got engine parts coming from 2 or 3 different suppliers, and I'm not sure when they'll get here, so I don't want to start doing the engine and then have to stop. I want to get everything together and we'll build it up. But one thing that has arrived are 2 nice shiny new rims, stainless steel spokes and nipples. So one thing we'll be getting on with next week is preparing the hubs, and there's a fair amount of work involved in that on the back hub with regard to the sprocket, and all that will be explained in due time. So until next week, stay safe and enjoy yourselves.